All right, today we're jumping into one of the shortest but honestly most powerful stories in the entire Old Testament, the Book of Ruth. It's just 4 chapters, but man, it tells this incredible story about loyalty, kindness, and in the end, redemption.
So let's start with the big idea that really unlocks this whole thing. It's this: you don't always find God's huge cosmic story of redemption in the massive, miraculous events. Sometimes you find it in the small stuff, the seemingly ordinary parts of life, in tragedy, in a person's integrity, in a moment of generosity. You got to keep this in mind because we're about to see it play out perfectly.
Now, to really get how amazing this story is, you have to know when it's all happening. The Book of Ruth is set during the time of the Judges, and let me tell you, this was a totally chaotic, unstable period in Israel's history, way before they had any kings. It's this really dark backdrop that makes the acts of loyalty we're about to see shine so brightly. So, at its heart, this story really revolves around 3 main people who get caught up in a life-altering catastrophe. First up, you've got Naomi, an Israelite woman who feels like she has absolutely lost everything. Then there's her daughter-in-law Ruth. Now she's a foreigner, a Moabite, and Moabites were often seen as enemies to Israel, so her future is totally uncertain. And then their lives are going to intersect with Boaz, a really respected and honorable Israelite farmer who becomes just central to their story.
Yeah, this story does not ease you in. It kicks off with tragedy right out of the gate. There's a famine, so Naomi and her family have to flee their home. Then her husband dies. And just to make the heartbreak even worse, both of her sons died too. She is left feeling completely alone, which sets up this powerful theme of emptiness and loss that just runs through this whole first part of the book.
But right here, in the face of this absolute despair, one person makes a decision that changes absolutely everything. It sets the whole story on a brand new course. And this is the turning point of the whole story. Naomi, feeling like she has nothing left to give, tells her daughters-in-law to go back to their own people. But Ruth refuses. She makes this incredible pledge to stay with Naomi, saying that famous line, "Where you go, I will go." It's this radical act of love and loyalty, especially coming from an outsider, that just changes the game completely.
And you can see how one good choice just leads to another. Ruth's loyalty isn't just words. She immediately gets to work to provide for Naomi. And it's her integrity and her hard work, gathering leftover grain in the fields, that leads her right to Boaz's field. What looks like a total coincidence turns out to be a really pivotal moment.
So, this meeting with Boaz, it's like the first real glimmer of hope. And for Naomi, who is just drowning in bitterness, this little spark of hope leads to a pretty bold plan for their future. And you can really see the whole arc of the story laid out right here. It moves so beautifully from the catastrophe in chapter 1 to that hopeful meeting in chapter 2, then to Naomi's daring plan in chapter 3, and finally a complete restoration and a new beginning in chapter 4. It's this perfect journey from loss to hope. So, okay, it's a beautifully told story for sure, but what are we supposed to take away from it today? Why is this ancient narrative still so powerful? Well, at its core, the entire book is a story about reversal. It just masterfully moves from this profound emptiness you see at the beginning, tragedy, famine, death, to this complete sense of fullness at the end, filled with generosity, marriage, and new life.
This journey from empty to full really shows us the story's key themes. It's about devotion, not just to God, but to each other, like Ruth showed Naomi. It proves how kindness and generosity, like what Boaz showed Ruth, can literally bring life out of a situation that felt like death. And most powerfully, it just hammers home this idea that our fates are not final. Things can be reversed.
And this brings everything full circle, right back to that idea we started with. See, the story of Ruth isn't just ancient history. It's an invitation. It's asking us to look at our own lives, our own choices, our challenges, our relationships, and to maybe consider how a bigger purpose might be unfolding.
So the story leaves us with this really powerful question for our own lives. When you look at the seemingly ordinary, maybe even mundane events, the challenges, the random encounters, the choices you have to make, where might you be part of a bigger story? What could your own journey from emptiness to fullness actually look like?